It is the middle of August. You are standing at your kitchen counter with a knife in your hand and 3 peaches in the fruit bowl going soft in the heat. And the flies are back. The same flies that were on the counter yesterday morning. The same ones that were circling the compost bin the day before. One lands on the rim of the glass you just set down. One lands on the peach. You wave your hand, they scatter, they come back. You wave again, they come back again. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you know that you are not winning this. You are just waving your hand in your own kitchen while the flies wait you out. So you do what the store trained you to do. You drive to the hardware store. You pull a 3-pack of sticky strips off the hook by the door, $8.99. The yellow curling kind that hangs from the cabinet above the counter and catches flies, and also catches your hair, and also catches the corner of the dish towel when you reach past it. It fills up in a week that you spend looking at a yellow strip covered in dead flies hanging in the middle of your kitchen. And then you throw it out and you buy another one. Or you buy the spray, the can that promises to kill on contact, that fills the kitchen with a chemical fog that settles on every surface, that you read the label of very carefully the 3rd time you buy it, because you noticed it says, "Keep away from food preparation surfaces," and you cook on those surfaces 3 times a day. Now I want you to sit with something. My grandmother kept a glass jar on the kitchen windowsill every summer. June through September, every year, the same jar in the same spot. 3 ingredients, one of which was something from her pantry, one was a scrap of paper, one was the jar itself. She made it in 3 minutes. She never bought a fly strip in her life. She never owned a can of spray, and the flies in her kitchen in August were fewer than the flies in a house that was spending money every week trying to fight them. Not because the jar killed them, because the jar pulled them in. My name is Silas Miller. I am Amish, and I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. That jar my grandmother kept is what I am going to show you today. Exactly what goes in it, exactly why it works. Because once you understand the science of what a fly is looking for, the whole trap makes immediate sense. And exactly where to place it, because placement is half the method. I am also going to tell you the honest limits. There are several kinds of flies that visit a kitchen, and this trap handles some of them brilliantly, and some of them only moderately well. And you deserve to know which is which before you make it. But before any of that, I want to tell you the thing that most fly control products are very careful never to explain. Because if you understood it, you would stop buying the product. A fly does not come into your kitchen because it likes your kitchen. It comes into your kitchen because your kitchen smells like what a fly needs. Fermenting fruit. The faint sweetness of a ripening peach or a soft plum or an overripe banana. The warm, damp smell rising from the compost bin. The faint trace of sugar at the rim of the jar of honey you left open for a moment. A fly is not wandering in randomly. It is being pulled in by chemistry, by volatile compounds released into the air by fermenting and decaying organic matter, which its sense of smell can detect at concentrations so low you and I cannot register them at all. This is important because it tells you the only way to actually solve the problem. You can kill flies after they are already in your kitchen. That is what the strip does and what the spray does. Both of them require the fly to already be there, already on your counter, already on your fruit. You kill a few, more come in, You kill a few more. The source of the attraction is still there, the bowl of fruit, the compost bin, the warm kitchen air loaded with the smell of summer ripening. And the flies keep coming to it, because that is what flies do. Or you can build something that smells more attractive than your fruit bowl. Something that calls to the fly's sense of smell louder than anything else in the kitchen and draws the fly into it and keeps it there. That is what the jar does. It does not wait for a fly to land somewhere and then kill it. It calls the fly away from the counter, away from the fruit, away from the rim of your glass, into a container it cannot find its way back out of. The jar is a louder signal than the fruit bowl, and once a fly is inside the jar, it is done. Here is the science of why the bait works, and it is straightforward once you hear it. Apple cider vinegar. Real, unfiltered apple cider vinegar with the mother still in it, the cloudy kind, releases acetic acid into the air as it sits. Acetic acid is one of the primary compounds that fermenting fruit produces. To a fly, the smell of apple cider vinegar is indistinguishable from the smell of a pile of the finest overripe fruit. It is, in the fly's perception, the most promising food source in the room. The unfiltered kind with the mother in it releases these compounds more actively than the clear filtered kind, which is why it works better. The difference is real and worth noting when you buy it. The sugar. A small spoonful of white sugar or a few drops of honey stirred into the vinegar accelerates the fermentation process slightly and adds a sweet top note to the scent that certain fly species find additionally attractive. It is not strictly necessary, but it sharpens the bait. The dish soap, a single small drop, no more, breaks the surface tension of the liquid. Without it, a fly that lands on the surface of the vinegar can feel the tension beneath its feet, push off, and fly back out. With the dish soap in it, the surface tension collapses the moment the fly touches it. The fly goes in and does not come back out. One drop. That is all it takes. 3 ingredients: apple cider vinegar, unfiltered, a small spoonful of sugar or a drop of honey, 1 drop of dish soap. That is the bait. Now, the jar and the funnel. And this is the part that makes the whole thing work the way my grandmothers did, rather than the way a bowl of vinegar left open on the counter works, which is less effectively. Take any glass jar, a mason jar, a jam jar, a wide-mouthed pickle jar. Pour the bait into the bottom, about 2 inches of apple cider vinegar, the spoonful of sugar stirred in, the single drop of dish soap. Now take a piece of paper, a sheet of plain white paper, or a piece torn from a paper bag, or a square cut from a paper grocery sack, and roll it into a cone, a funnel shape with a small opening at the narrow end. The opening should be about the diameter of your little finger, no larger. Set the funnel into the mouth of the jar so the narrow end points down toward the liquid. If the jar is wide-mouthed, the funnel will rest on the rim on its own. If not, a piece of tape holds it in place. That funnel is the whole trick. A fly following the scent trail down through the top of the funnel has no difficulty entering. The opening is plenty large, the smell is pulling it in, and the fly is motivated. But a fly sitting on the liquid inside the jar, trying to find its way back out, is looking upward at a cone of paper with a small hole at the top. The instinct of a fly trying to escape a container is to move toward the light, upward, toward the bright sky above the cone. The hole at the top of the funnel is small and perfectly centered, And a fly that has been in the vinegar and is walking upward along the inside of a paper cone has almost no chance of finding it. They circle, they walk, they do not find the exit. And in the meantime, the dish soap has been doing its work on any that touched the liquid. My grandmother used a cone of brown paper from the feed sack. I've used a torn piece of the farm supply catalog. You can use any paper that holds a cone shape. The material does not matter. The geometry does. Place the jar on the kitchen windowsill, near the fruit bowl, near the compost bin, wherever the fly traffic is heaviest. Not on the dining table, not where people sit and eat. You want it close enough to the attraction to intercept the flies before they reach the fruit, but not so close to where people sit that it becomes a nuisance. The windowsill is where my grandmother put it for good reason. Flies enter through windows. The jar sits at the threshold and catches them before they make it further in. For a larger kitchen or an open-plan space, 2 jars placed at opposite ends of the room work better than one in the middle. The scent field from each jar overlaps in the center of the room, and there is no dead zone where the flies can settle undisturbed. For the porch, the same jar works without the funnel. Leave the mouth open. On a porch, you want a wider scent spread, and you are less concerned with containing every fly precisely. The open jar on the porch rail catches what is coming toward the kitchen door before it gets there. Replace it every 3 to 4 days when the bait loses its fermentation activity or when the jar fills. For the barn, the chicken coop, the kennel, anywhere that fly pressure is serious, the bait changes slightly. Replace the apple cider vinegar with water and a tablespoon of molasses or a piece of raw meat or a small amount of rotting fruit. Houseflies and blowflies, which are the barn variety and the larger flies you see around animals and waste, respond to protein and sugar fermentation rather than to the acetic acid signal that draws the smaller kitchen flies. The funnel jar works the same way. The bait is different. Now I owe you the honest words about what this trap does well and what it does not, because I will not have you build it expecting one thing and find another. This jar is excellent for fruit flies, the tiny, slow, reddish-brown flies that hover over ripe fruit and swarm the compost bin in warm weather. If that is your problem, this jar will clear your kitchen of them in 24 to 48 hours. I am not exaggerating that. The apple cider vinegar is almost perfectly calibrated to the fruit fly's attraction chemistry, and once you have the jar placed correctly, the results are fast and dramatic. It is good, though slower, for common house flies. The larger gray flies that land on surfaces and are harder to kill. House flies respond to the vinegar bait, but less powerfully than fruit flies. They are also physically stronger and faster and slightly better at finding the exit hole in the funnel. Expect meaningful reduction in housefly numbers, not the near-complete clearance you get with fruit flies. It is not particularly effective for blowflies, the large, loud, metallic blue or metallic green flies that come in from outside, usually following the smell of meat or waste. Those want protein bait, and the vinegar jar does not call to them the same way. For blowflies in a barn or around a garbage area, switch to the meat or molasses bait I described a moment ago. Empty and refresh the jar every 3 to 4 days in summer. The fermentation activity of the vinegar peaks in the first few days and drops off after that. A jar that has been sitting for a week is not working as hard as a fresh one. 3 to 4 days. Empty the catch, rinse the jar, fresh bait. That is the whole maintenance schedule. In a very hot kitchen in August, you may find the bait works for 2 days rather than 4 before it needs refreshing. Heat accelerates the fermentation and then exhausts it faster. In a cooler kitchen in September, the same bait might last 5 or 6 days. You learn the rhythm of your own kitchen quickly. Now I want to take a moment, because this is the part that matters, and it is bigger than a jar of vinegar. Think about the sticky strip. You know the one. Yellowing celluloid, coated in a chemical adhesive, rolled into a tube, hanging from a thumbtack above your counter. Ugly as anything you have ever put in a kitchen, filling up with flies and dust and whatever else makes contact with it. Replaced once a week, twice in a bad August. $8.99 for a 3-pack that lasts you 2 weeks. That strip was invented in the late 1800s. The first ones were coated with arsenic. The modern ones use chemical adhesives and sometimes added lures, synthetic pheromones or acetic acid compounds to draw the flies in. Synthetic acetic acid in a chemical lure on a store-bought strip. The same compound that is in the apple cider vinegar you already have in your pantry. They are selling you, in a plastic tube for $3 per strip, a synthetic version of something you have sitting in a bottle on your kitchen shelf that costs $4 a gallon and lasts all summer. That is not a coincidence. That is a business model. Nobody put a patent on apple cider vinegar. Nobody can charge you a premium for a mason jar you already own and a piece of paper. Nobody can sell you a subscription to a cone of brown paper rolled into a funnel. There is no money in the old way, and so nobody teaches it. The strip has a manufacturer. The strip has a distribution chain. The strip has a marketing budget and a shelf position at the hardware store and a little cardboard sign above it that says New Formula. The jar on the windowsill has none of those things. It just works. My grandmother never heard of the fly strip. She was gone before they were common in this county. She kept the jar because her mother showed her, and her mother kept it because her mother showed her, going back further than anyone in my family can trace. It was not a secret. It was simply what you did in August before anyone decided there was money in selling you something uglier that worked less well. There is still money in selling you the strip. There is still money in the spray and the plug-in device and the UV zapper and the pheromone lure and the dozen other products on that aisle, all of them solving the same problem at 10 times the cost of a jar of vinegar and a scrap of paper. The jar is still on the windowsill. It has been there the whole time. So here is what I want you to do today. Not this weekend, today. Go to your kitchen. Find a glass jar. Find your apple cider vinegar, the unfiltered kind if you have it. Pour 2 inches in the bottom. Add a spoonful of sugar and a single drop of dish soap. Roll a piece of paper into a cone. Set it in the mouth of the jar and put the whole thing on your kitchen windowsill, next to the fruit bowl, near the compost bin, wherever the flies have been. Come back tomorrow morning. Tell me in the comments what you found. How many flies? What kind? How long it took? What part of the country you are in, and what your August fly situation looks like. Because the stories people share in these comments, the grandmother who did it this way in Mississippi, the farmer who has used it in the barn for 40 years, the person in a city apartment who did not believe it would work and then watched it fill up overnight, those stories reach the next person in a way I never can. And one more question. What other kitchen pest has given you the most trouble? The ants in spring, the roaches in summer, the moths in the grain cabinet in fall. Tell me. Your answers shape the videos I make next, and I read every single one. Next time, since we have been talking about what comes into the kitchen uninvited, I'm going to show you the old way my family keeps grain and dried food, flour, oats, dried beans, completely free of weevils and moths, using the same food-grade powder I showed you in the pest control video, and a few habits that have kept Amish pantries clean for 200 years. It is a short video. It will save you a great deal of frustration and a great deal of thrown-away flour. Until then, roll the cone, pour the vinegar, set the jar on the sill, and remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.